We are continuing the Rambam's laws of war. And I expect that in today's shiur we will take a surprise tangent. But what would be the point of ruining the surprise if I told you what the tangent will be now? Rather, we will take the tangent when it is time for us to take the tangent. If you have a copy of the Rambam's Mishneh Torah, you want to be in the Rambam's laws of war, chapter 6. If you don't have a copy and you'd like to open it up on Sefaria, please go to sefaria.org. Click Halakha. Click Mishneh Torah. Click Laws of War. And find chapter 6 over there. Halakha, Mishneh Torah, Laws of War. I'll repeat what the Rambam told us last week. En osin milchama im adam ba'olam. We do not make a war with any human being on earth. Forever. Ad shekorin lo leshalom, until we first offer peace. That applies echad milchemet hareshut, ve'echad milchemet mitzvah. It doesn't matter whether this is an optional war, a war that we elect to go into, or a war that we are obligated by the Torah to go into. I'm going to ask the same questions I asked last week, because hopefully you remember them from last week. What is a milchemet mitzvah? Yes.
To go to war.
Against who? Pause. Against who else? Again, the 7 nations that were in Canaan. Who else? Anybody who comes to kill the Jewish people, the war that we respond to them, including the war of Amalek and the war of the 7 nations, are considered wars of a mitzvah. They have a different status than milchemet hareshut. Those are wars
that the king offers after being told by the Sanhedrin that he's allowed.
Very good. So we continue. Im hishlimu, if shenemar, like it says in the Torah, we read these pesukim last week. I'll read them again. Ki tikra v'l'ir lihilachem aleha vekarata aleha leshalom. If you come close to a city to wage war against it, you must call out to her in peace. Im hishlimu, if they make peace with us, v'kibilu sheva mitzvot shenitztavu b'nei Noach alehen, and they accept upon themselves the 7 mitzvot that the children of Noach are required to accept. We discussed last week what are the 7 mitzvot of Noach. It was important for me, I didn't point it out last week, because I don't think I pointed it out last week. It's important to know that according to many chachamim, the 7 mitzvot apply to all non-Jews everywhere in the world. According to some chachamim, and it is the opinion of Chacham Fa'ur, by the way, which obviously according to some could be considered as not Maimonidean, but I'm not here to stick my head between chachamim. According to Chacham Fa'ur, the laws of Noach only apply to people who are living in the borders of Eretz Israel while there's a Jewish government in Eretz Israel. We don't police other people's religions wherever they live, anywhere they live. We only expect that those people living in the land of Israel are following the 7 mitzvot of Noach while they are living in the land of Israel. We're not looking to go to other countries and tell them what they should or should not believe over there.
There is maybe the only instance I know. I was reminded again today that there was a Jewish kingdom in Taman.
Right, so that's not the only place, but so what would be the halachic status of a Jewish kingdom somewhere else? I don't know. It is an interesting question. Yep. Now we continue, and he says, En horgin mehem neshama. We don't kill anyone from them. V'harehem lamas, and they are for us as taxable citizens. Shene'emar yu lecha lamas va'avaducha. They shall pay you taxes, and they will serve you. We're going to explain exactly what that means on the next part of the halakha. Kibelu aleim hamas. We did not do this part last week. If they accept upon themselves, we'll make peace with you. We accept the 7 mitzvot of Noach. We accept the taxes. You're going to tax us. Being a citizen in a country, whether you like it or not, means you have to pay taxes. That's how it works. Velo kibelu ha'avdut, but they don't accept the servitude to the Jewish people. Now, maybe I should put the carriage before the horse. What does it mean to have servitude towards the Jewish people? How did I define that last week? You are enemies of the Jews. We come to you, and really, what should we do because you're enemies of the Jews? We should kill you. That's what we should do. But instead, what do? We offer you peace. Now, peace is on condition. You can join us and stay here. You can live here. But there are a few expectations. One, to reject Avodah Zarah and believe in the God of Israel and follow basic laws of humanity, not Judaism. Basic laws of humanity. On top of that, you must agree to pay taxes here. What does it mean to pay taxes here? You cannot stay here if you think you belong to a different nation or a different country, or if you pledge allegiance to another flag, then you don't belong in this country. We're talking about who? A people that we went to war against, and we offered them to stay on these conditions. We could kill you too. These are the conditions. It's not the same for any person living in Israel who's not Jewish. Not the same, different laws. Here we're coming to war against people. We want to kill them. But before we kill them, we must offer them peace. On condition, of course. And by the way, I don't expect anybody who does not believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or does not believe in the divinity of the Torah, to even accept these halachot as moral or ethical. They obviously would view this as some kind of forcible, primitive way of going to war. I don't have to justify myself to anyone outside of those who operate within Am Yisrael. Inside of Am Yisrael, we offer seven mitzvot of Noach. The second, agree to be a citizen that is taxable by the king. And third, the third is avdut. What is avdut? I recognize that I, as a non-Jewish citizen of a Jewish sovereign state, live here in peace and happiness and safety and security, but I agree that this is a Jewish state, that this state is run by Jews, that all of the positions of authority in the state are to be determined by Am Yisrael only. I can stay here on those conditions. If I don't like it, I can go somewhere else. But in order to stay here, those are the three basic requirements that I must accept. So, if they accept to be taxed, but they don't accept Jewish sovereignty, or they accept Jewish sovereignty, but they don't want to pay taxes. En shomim lahem, we don't accept their peace. Ad shekablu shanehem, until they accept both. V'ha'avdut shekabluhi, and that which we mean that they should accept Jewish sovereignty, shu nivzim ushvalim lemata. They should be, forgive me for the English translation, should be considered of a lesser citizenship status than Am Yisrael. V'lo yarimu rosh b'Yisrael, and they should not raise their head against the Jewish people. Ela yu kvushim tachat yadam. Rather, they will be under their sovereignty. V'lo yitmanu al Yisrael leshum davar ba'olam. And they will not have any legal authority over the Jewish people at all. That means you could stay in Israel. But what does it mean that you're going to be a Knesset member and make laws? What does it mean you're going to decide how the future of the Jewish state is going to look? You're going to determine who the next prime minister is, or who the next chief rabbi is. It's not. In this state, this is how this works. V'hamas shikablu. When we say that they accept upon themselves to be taxed, shu muchanim la'avodat hamelech begufam u'mamonam. By the way, for those of you who are struggling with the equality of the statement, no one is claiming equality. So there's no claim here to equality. If you wish to understand in the context of Am Yisrael today, imagine if there were Arab citizens of the state of Israel, there are, who accept that this is a Jewish state, and they wish to live at peace with the Jewish people, and they accept that this country is a Jewish country, and they agree not to worship Avodah Zarah in this country, and they agree to be taxed and be volunteers and be ready to help Am Yisrael in this country, then those are the people that we're talking about. But if they wish to stay in the country and pledge allegiance to another flag and fight against the Jewish people actively, that they are not the rulers of this country, and refuse to participate with Am Yisrael in any of the struggles in their country, they don't belong in the country. This is what we're talking about. V'hamas shikablu. So that which we say they will be taxed. Shu muchanim la'avodat hamelech begufam u'mamonam. Kigon, they'll be ready to serve the king with their body and their money. Kigon binyan hachomot, like building the walls. V'chizuk hamitzudot, and strengthening, Avinu, careful with the wires. And strengthening the fortresses. Uvinyan armon hamelech, and building the palace of the king, the government buildings, v'chayot sebo, and anything like that. Shenemar, like it says in the book of Kings, V'zeh devar hamas asher hela hamelech Shlomo. This is the taxation that King Shlomo put on the non-Jews that he conquered. Livnot et bet Adonai, to build the house of Hashem, vet beto, and his palace, vet hamilo, vet chomat Yerushalayim, and the walls of Jerusalem, vet kol arei hamiskenot asher hayu Shlomo, and all the cities that were for Shlomo, v'yalem Shlomo lamas oved ad hayom hazeh. And Shlomo taxes them until today. Umin bnei Yisrael lo natan Shlomo aved. Why did Shlomo not make the Jewish people do those things? Why? How do the Jewish people serve the country? Ki hem anshe hamilchama, because they're the soldiers. V'avada v'sara v'shalisha v'sarir bo farashav, and they're the servants of the government, the ministers of the offices, and they are the ones who are carrying the weapons and bakol mikol kol. Meaning all those things that relate to helping the government and helping the country, the non-Jewish citizens are involved in. And all of those things, which are part of national security, leading the armed forces, those are left for Am Yisrael, regular citizens of the Jewish state to do. V'yesh lamelech lehatnot imahem. And so here's an example. The king is supposed to make an agreement with a non-Jewish nation he just conquered. Shikach chatzi mamonam, o hakarkaot v'yaniach kol hametaltalin, o kol hametaltalin v'yaniach hakarkaot, kefi ma sheyatnu, or in Rav Kappas Rambam, sheyatne. So the agreement is, listen, I'm taking half of the possessions of this nation that I'm conquering. That's my tax. And either I can take all of the land and you can keep the possessions. I'm taking all the possessions or you can keep the land. But there's going to be a financial agreement between us here. And the difference between this edition of the Rambam that you're reading and the Rav Kapach's edition of the Rambam, kefi ma sheyitnu means, someone help me with the Hebrew? The agreement is made based on yitnu. What is yitnu? What they will agree on. They. Who's they? Everybody. The Rambam's, Rav Kapach's reading of the Rambam, Shiyatneh, his Yemenite version of the manuscript says, whatever the king decides. So who's making the decision? The king. Not everybody. The king will make a choice. What is it that he's taxing?
Doesn't involve the Sanhedrin.
Not necessarily. It could be that by way of how the king makes decisions, there's a Sanhedrin involved. It could be. But this is war. Usually those kind of decisions are made on some type of... I'm on Bet in Halakha Vav. And now I'm on Halakha Gimel. Here's the most important part of making treaties with our enemies. Listen to Halakha Gimel. You see number 3? V'asur l'shaker bivritam. It is forbidden to lie to them when making treaties. U'lechazev lehem, and we're not allowed to betray them. Achar sheishlimu v'kiblu sheva mitzvot. Once they make peace with us and they accept the 7 mitzvot, it is forbidden for us to renege on an agreement that we made with them. Meaning, the reputation of Am Yisrael has to be that when we make a promise with our enemies at war to make peace with us, that we will never pretend to make peace in order to attack somebody. Wow. Like Yehoshua and the Giv'onim. Now, before I ask you if you know what I'm talking about, I want you to know that my wife has a shiur about this on YouTube. It's called something about Judaism in a welfare state. Do you remember the exact title? No. You can look in the Rabbanit's playlist on the Shiviti channel and you will find it. She has an extensive shiur there on this topic.
Teachings
from the writings of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy. You know the story of the Giv'onim? Yeah. Come please and share with us the story of the Giv'onim. Careful not to trip on the multitude of wires that are here. You can come this way. 6th chapter, Gimel, of the laws of war. You found it? Just give me your Rambam.
Is it different?
This is you're in the book of Shoftim. You were in the laws of mourning. Here, Baruch Hashem, that's not relevant. But here, it's Gimel on this page. Okay. Elchanan, while looking at this camera, so the friends on YouTube and on Zoom can see you.
Okay.
Could you please explain to us about Yoshua and the Givonim and the story slowly, clearly?
Okay. So Yeshua was going to war. I don't remember which city he was conquering, but when he went, there was a group of people. They came up in front of him, and in these people, they looked poor and they were like wearing rags and stuff like that.
This is when Yoshua was conquering the land of Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Canaan. Yeah, and they come and tell him we're poor and we need a house and we need help, and
We traveled from
far, far away, and we don't have any food. We're starving. So Yoshua says, "Come," and he makes them like with the nation, and he takes them and makes a deal with them that they're gonna take care of them and they're gonna be with us. And then later, Yeshua finds out that the Givonim were just trying to get away from fighting, and they were actually traitors. But after Yeshua...
The Givonim were part of the 7 nations. Anyone know which family the Givonim were from? Which of the nations they were from?
I'm not sure.
The Chivim. Yeah, they were from the Chivim, yes?
Yeah. So they were Chivim. And then Yeshua said... So Yeshua made a new law. He said, I can't take back my deal. So he made them in charge of like serving the Kohanim and then later when Shaul...
Oh, wait, pause. So to understand what happened here, I'm going to just... Yehoshua comes to the land of Israel, to conquer the land of Israel. And what ends up happening is that these people come and they know they're from the nations that are supposed to be killed by the Jews. So what do? They're from right around the neighborhood. They're from the neighborhood. They put on clothes like they traveled from very, very, very far away. And by the way, you should know, the story half of it is true. They really didn't come from far away. But the Chivim, as we know, archaeologically lived not just in that area, but they lived also farther away in northern Israel. And so they were pretending to be from those that lived all the way far away. And they're coming to Yoshua, please make peace with us. We are poor people. And he didn't realize they were from the 7 nations. He made peace with them. And then he realized afterwards that they are a bunch of liars. And now Yoshua is faced with a dilemma. The Jewish people just made peace with someone who are traitors to the Jewish cause. What is he supposed to do? Can he get rid of the deal he made with them?
Nope. So he...
Why? If someone lies to you, you have to then follow through with what they lied to you about?
No.
But Yoshua knows he has to be careful. There's a halakha. He doesn't want to renege on a treaty. So he gives them a job. Why does he give them a job?
So because that way they're serving us, and they're getting like a job. So he
employed them. He gave them the job of cutting the wood
and serving the
and bringing the water for the Beit HaMikdash.
And then
so their job is to serve the temple by bringing supplies to the Beit HaMikdash. Now, fast forward many, many years in history, these Givonim always stay part of the Jewish people, but they kind of stay on their own. They stay alone and separate from us. Yeah.
So Shaul Amalek is conquering, and he goes out, and after Eliyahu, I think, says something, I don't remember what.
Shmuel
Hanavi, yeah. He says, I don't...
You learn Tanakh with Iman, that's why I'm putting on the question for Iman.
I forgot what he said.
Okay.
Yeah, he goes...
He says, oh, I heard David was here. What does he do?
And he kills everybody, and he kills the whole city of the Kohanim, and then the Givonim complain to David HaMelech that now they have no job because all the Kohanim are dead. So David HaMelech gives them, so they made a deal with David that they're going to find 7 relatives of Shaul and they will be killed.
That ending of the story is terrible because the relatives of Shaul that didn't really do anything are killed. And there's a lot of question, how does David give over the relatives of Shaul? I'm ignoring that question for right now. Here you learn something fascinating though. And that is that the Givonim complained to David, chutzpah. They've been making problems since they joined lying to us. The Givonim say, you know that he killed us, Shaul. I said, killed you. He didn't kill anybody. Rather, he took away our jobs. A person who loses their job poverty feels like dying. When a person can't pay their bills, they can't eat, they can't drink, it feels terrible, terrible. And so David HaMelech realizes, wow, again, what's going to happen if the whole world sees we convert people to Judaism, and then what do? We treat them like garbage. That's an evil thing. So David HaMelech takes it on his shoulders to fix the record. So
I talk in Jewish speaker, okay?
No, mixed. Okay. All right. Now that you know that, and you heard this lesson from Hamel Hanan, I will explain. We're going to talk more about the Givonim. Right now, they're not part of my conversation right now. But that is a very, very important story to recognize. The integrity of Am Yisrael at war is crucial. Because if we're going to offer people to make peace with us, we need them to know that we mean it. If you make peace, you can stay alive. And we're not going to trick you. How many people pretend to make peace? Every time I remember a war in Israel, they promise a ceasefire. The ceasefire starts, and the rockets don't stop. It's like amazing ceasefire. It's like, wow, we made a ceasefire. We're all idiots sitting there like ducks, and the rockets keep flying. I think every single war that I can remember is like that. Which means a ceasefire, it means cease from firing. That's on one side, right? That's usually not what it's supposed to mean. It's supposed to mean everybody agrees to a break. And this is, it sounds comical. It's really very sad. It is quite comical though. That we have to make sure that at our end, people recognize the word of Am Yisrael means something. When we promise you something, it means something. And you should know that throughout all of these wars, even in current Israel, the treaties that we've made with Jordan and with Egypt, they're not all based on friendship and love and mutual destiny of the world. They're made on certain... I'll talk about that later. But for right now, what you should know is Am Yisrael goes out of our way to recognize those treaties because it needs to be known that if we make peace with someone, we really mean it. We will be there. For right now, I want to continue reading to you something. And this part might upset some people. I'm not sure how far I'll get. But as far as I can get, I want to talk about part of this which is not so comfortable. And right now it feels kind of comfortable, but wait till we start digging under the hood, okay? V'im lo hishlimu. So what if they don't make peace with us? O shehishlimu v'lo kiblu sheva mitzvot. Or they made peace with us, but they don't want to accept the 7 mitzvot of Noach. Osin imahem milchama. We go to war against them. V'horgin kol hazecharim hagedolim. And we kill all of the adult males. Why all the adult males?
The women are innocent.
The women don't go to war, right? The children don't go to war. The men go to war. Very good, Avinon. We confiscate all of their property and their children. And we don't kill not a woman and not a child. Like we were commanded in Devarim. So woman includes all women, even little girls. Taf, children, comes to include the boys that are little. Now, you should know, as we keep going forward in history, we recognize that some of our enemies don't just use women in war, they also use little children at war. And part of this obviously needs to be considered in this conversation. Right now I'm dealing with, I can't say there are normal nations that go to war. It's not normal for people to go to war, but normal people who go to war who fight only adults versus adults. Right. Except I don't know anybody who follows them. Bameh devarim amurim. About what are we talking about? B'milchemet hareshut. All of the wars which we elect to go into war. Shi'im Shaar ha'omot. Those are the wars with other nations. Aval shiva amamin ve'amalek shelo hishlimu. But the 7 nations and Amalek who do not make peace with us, en manichim mehem neshama. We don't let any of them survive. Not men, not women, not children. שנאמר כן תעשה לכל הערים רק מערי העמים לא תחיה כל נשמה. This is the commandment of the Torah. וכן הוא אומר בעמלק, like it says about Amalek, תמחה את זכר Amalek. You must wipe out, eradicate the memory of Amalek. Now I ask you to remember 2 things. 1, I read to you already the other week from Chacham Faur who explained to us who are Amalek. Amalek is not only a biological people of Amalek, but there are other nations who embody Amalek, and currently Am Yisrael may be at war with an Amalek of its own. On that note, it's really important for me to explain this halakha, and that is, according to Rabbenu HaRambam, the mitzvah of wiping out Amalek, man, woman, child, that so many people struggle with. I cannot tell you how many mental gymnastics I've heard of rabbis over the years, all kinds of preachers over the years, all kinds of Jewish academics over the years trying to apologize why the Torah believes in this genocide of Amalek or the 7 nations. Understand that according to our understanding of the Torah, of Chachamei Sfarad, war against Amalek is only waged if they refuse to make peace with us. You hear what I'm telling you? If they wish to stay alive, that is, to accept upon themselves the 7 mitzvot of Noach, stop killing people. That's one of them. And they accept to live in a sovereign Jewish state as citizens who are taxable and who don't try to control or be traitors to the destiny of the Jewish people, Amalek will stay alive.
They still have the status of Amalek.
No, they lose their status of Amalek. They now become part of whatever ger toshav, whatever resident citizen of the Jewish people are. That's why, listen very carefully. Those who reject the notion of giur, of conversion to Judaism, are the blindest individuals that exist in Am Yisrael. Hare, you find that the children of Haman, the grandchildren of Haman, study and teach Torah in Bnei Brak. You find Shemaya and Naftalion, who are members of the oral transmission from Moshe Rabbenu until today. That oral transmission, in the link, are 2 people who converted to Judaism. Rabbi Akiva, whose family converted to Judaism. And those biological Jews, I'll tell you their names, Yishmael and Esav, both literally biological descendants of Avraham Avinu, are not part of the Jewish people at all. Because it's not about biology. It is about attaching yourself. Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha Kehillat Yaakov. There is a morasha. There's a heritage, a destiny that we connect ourselves to. And all who connect themselves to that are part of Am Yisrael. And all those who don't, already you understand from what I told you about the children of Avraham Avinu. And so here, we're offering Amalek. We're offering the Girgashi, the Yevusi, the Chivi, all of those people have a chance to make peace with the Jewish people. And yet they don't. They don't. Now something, before I explain why they don't, listen to this next paragraph. How do we know that you're only supposed to wipe out those who don't make peace with us? שנאמר, לא הייתה עיר אשר השלימה אל בני ישראל בלתי החיבי יושבי גבעון. In the book of Yoshua it says, and there was no one of the 7 nations who made peace with the Jewish people except for the Chivi who lived in Giv'on. So meaning likely the rest of the Chivim were destroyed. But Giv'on, the Giv'onim as we call them, those people made peace. Et hakol nakhu b'milchama, we took them all in war. Why? כי מאת אדוני הייתה לחזק את ליבם לקראת המלחמה את ישראל למען החרימם. Says Yehoshua, the prophet, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made them wage war against us so that we can destroy them completely. Wait. Miklal, from here you see, ששלחו להם לשלום ולא קיבלו. That we sent peace offerings to the 7 nations. And they didn't receive our peace. And therefore we went to war. And says Yehoshua that this was the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to destroy them, even though we offered peace. The decision to die was whose? Theirs. They made a choice. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was happy with that choice. And so I told you I would make you uncomfortable. You have time to learn with me a little bit more? Yeah? I want to take you somewhere completely different, somewhere that you might not be used to, but somewhere where the Rambam talks about these exact things. And they have less to do with war and more to do with us. And to maybe understand what kind of sick thing is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to offer peace to people that he wants dead. Meaning, if he's going to kill them anyways, why does he make us offer them peace? And how mean is it that maybe they want to live, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu forces them, so to speak, to die? For which reason? Sounds a lot like Paro. It's exactly like Paro, not a lot, it's exactly like Paro. So maybe you can turn with me to the Rambam somewhere else.
Because if they accept those conditions, they're no longer that people. They're different people now.
So why does it say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want them to accept those conditions? Let us wipe them out through teshuvah, not wipe them out through warfare. I'm going to exercise my full right to teach tonight, if I can. I want to. There's something very important, and it actually gives us a practical ramification till today. So let's do it together. Open up the laws of teshuvah if you can. So you want to go back to the Rambam. You want to find the laws of repentance. That's probably what they call it. Chapter 6. It's in a different volume. I have one up there if you find the book with the Aleph, the blue ones. Though someone told me recently that it was missing. I hope not. Is there an Aleph? The right volumes, the blue. Is there an Aleph on the spine of any of them? Oh, there you go. Rabbanit is in your other volume, on page 192. Yitzchak, you're going to love this one. This is for you.
Thank you. Same page though?
I know. Yitzchak, I don't think you're going to say thank you, but it's for you anyway. No, Yitzchak and I, we have deep conversations, and we recently spoke about something connected to this. Yeah. So the Rambam obviously tells us about teshuvah. That is the ability of a person who does something wrong to fix their relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yes, that is what it's teshuvah? Good. Here is what Rabbenu HaRambam says. I just switched my pages. Notice that right before the laws of teshuvah, the Rambam has the laws of avodah zarah. Because what do you have to do teshuvah for? For avodah zarah. Here's what the Rambam says. Pesukim harbe yesh b'Torah. There are many pesukim in the Torah. Uvidivrei haneviim, and the words of the prophets, shehen nirin kesotrin ikar zeh, which seem to violate, I made a mistake, 234, which seem to violate this principle that we have free will, that we can choose our destiny. ויעלה על דעתן מהן שהקדוש ברוך הוא גוזר על האדם לעשות טובה או רעה, and these people in their imagination, they think, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides that people will do good or people will do bad. ושאין ליבו של האדם מסור לו להטותו לכל אשר ירצה. And that really our hearts are not in our hands, that we have to do whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us to do. We don't get to choose for ourselves where we go. והריני מבאר עיקר גדול שממנו תדעה פירוש כל אותן הפסוקים. Says the Rambam, I want to explain to you something very important, and from this explanation, you will understand everything. Now, just because the Rambam is going to explain it, doesn't mean that we're going to like it. It means, though, that this is how the Rambam understands this. So let's explain. בזמן שאדם אחד חוטא. When one person sins, and I use the word sin, I'm borrowing it obviously from Christianity. I'm using the word chote in Hebrew. O anshe medina chotin, or the people of a country do a sin. ועושה החוטא חטא שעשה מדעתו וברצונו כמו שהודענו. And the person does that chet willingly. They choose to do this thing wrong. ראוי להיפרע ממנו. This person now deserves a consequence. They did something wrong. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is supposed to give them a consequence. והקדוש ברוך הוא יודע איך ייפרע. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows how to give him back evil as payment for what he did evil in the world. Yesh chet, there are some sins, but don't think just like Jewish sins. He didn't wear tefillin. Think there's a person who kills somebody else. There's a country who kills many other people. They now did something wrong and they deserve a consequence for what they did, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what he's going to do and why. There are some things that a person can suffer for in this world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give them a consequence in this world. Begufo, in their body, or b'mamono, or their money, or their possessions, or b'vanav haketanim, or in their children. Okay, let's pause right here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to cause someone suffering because they cause suffering. This is midah keneged midah. It's a consequence because of something that was done. How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu punish them? Either by punishing their money, themselves first, their money, or something that belongs to them. according to halakha, young children, young means under the age of bar mitzvah, are not individual people. Rather, they are possessions of their parents. שבניו של האדם הקטנים שאין בהן דעת ולא הגיעו לכלל מצוות. Children that have no ability to have da'at, to make decisions for themselves, and they've not reached the age of mitzvot. Kikinyanohen, they're like objects, forgive me, that we own. Katuv, like it says, Ish becheto yumat. A person will die for their sins once they become an ish, an adult. Until a person becomes an adult, anything that happens to them because of the actions of their parents.
Is that why that special bracha?
We're going to talk about that bracha. Wait, we're going to talk about it. Ad sheyaseh ish, until they become a person. Now, we like it, don't like it, and we ask, why does an innocent child suffer? I don't understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world he does. But for whatever reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that this person, the adult, did something wrong. And instead of them suffering, or their money suffering, whatever they did means their child suffers. It's an evil, terrible feeling, a pain, horrendous. And this is one of the ways in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when you say in the tefillah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives an evil person evil like the evil they deserve. The evil they did is what they get paid back to them. Understanding that a child is not yet considered their own person. And because of that, anything that happens to them because of the wrongdoings of their parents. Yeah. Yes. Pasuk, yeah. Ver.
Being sent, being
Passed down from generation to generation. Yes. So over there, we're not even talking about that, because that's talking about adult children. Here we're talking about minors. Minors, according to Jewish law, have no ability to do anything authoritative. ויש חטא, and there are חטאים, שהדין נותן שנפרעים ממנו לעולם הבא. That the suffering that they deserve is so bad that there's nothing in this world that they can suffer from. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give them that consequence in the next world. ואין עובר עליו שום נזק בעולם הזה. And you see them live their life, an evil person lives their life in this world like nothing happened to them. They're living a great life. If this is hell, I love it. Yeah, he didn't wait to see what's happening next. But everything here is also the opposite, right? So sometimes HaKadosh will give to our children or to us or to our money because of something good we did in this world. Or sometimes there are good things that we do. HaKadosh, why am I not getting the reward? Because the reward that you deserve is so great that it's not in this world. It has to be in another world because you deserve something so much better than what you can. How many ice cream cones do you want in this world? How much ice cream? Imagine that's what we're asking for. ויש חטא שנפרעים ממנו עליו בעולם הזה ולעולם הבא. And there are some chataim that in this world a person will suffer, and even in the next world they will suffer. במה דברים אמורים? When am I talking about, says the Rambam? בזמן שלא עשה תשובה. When a person did not do teshuvah. Maybe you understand now why our chachamim make us do teshuvah all day long. Every tefillah we're doing teshuvah, because why would you want to suffer in this world for something you did wrong when you have an opportunity to do teshuvah? אבל אם עשה תשובה, but if you do תשובה, התשובה כתריס לפני הפורענות. He's quoting the words of our rabbis who says that teshuvah is like a bulletproof vest against all the evil that we deserve. So we do teshuvah. It doesn't mean that we didn't do anything wrong. What does it mean? Now our teshuvah protects us from the consequences of what we really should deserve. But a person gets shot in a bulletproof vest, it still hurts. It just doesn't hurt as much. וכשם שאדם חוטא ברצונו מדעתו, כך הוא עושה תשובה ברצונו מדעתו. And just like a person does averot in their own free will, also a person does teshuvah out of their own free will. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do teshuvah for you. You have to do teshuvah for yourself. Now there can be one step worse than suffering because of our avirot. The one step worse, says the Rambam. And, I'm only teaching these things here because I trust all of you. You're not going to turn this into some fire and brimstone, hell, people going suffering. We're not like that here. Obviously, we're trying to explain something very deep, quickly. The Rambam says one more thing. It can happen that a person will do something so bad, or things together that are so bad, we call HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed are you, the true judge. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the true judge. That sometimes in his judgment of truth, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides that because this person chose to do averot, we're not talking about a person who did averot by mistake. A person chose to be bad in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sometimes the consequence is even worse. Over there, what can be worse than suffering in this world and the next world? What can be worse? And then he's in the next world. So what can be worse than that? Listen to what the Rambam says. Shemon'in mimeno hateshuva ve'en manichin lo reshut lashuv merish'o. That a Kadosh Baruch Hu will not allow him to do teshuvah. The worst level is that HaKadosh says, I will not let you do teshuvah. I will not let you turn away from your evil ways. Kedei sheyamut, so he will die, v'yovad b'chataim elu she'asa, and he should be destroyed because of the avirot that he did. A person can sometimes reach a place so bad, they're no longer even deserving to do teshuvah. And there's a few pesukim, the Rambam will tell us here, how many times HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the prophet Yeshayahu, or tell other Nevi'im, let the Jewish people just die. Let them, they like worshiping Avodah Zarah. Let them worship Avodah Zarah. Don't make them do teshuvah. HaKadosh tells the prophet, let them worship, let them die being guilty. I don't want to have to deal with them anymore. That's the worst level that a person can reach. But who reached this level? But think of it, a rabbinic figure. They just celebrated his Brit Milah yesterday. Yeshu. About Jesus, it says, I know it's 8 days after Christmas, no? No. So, that's how I did the math. So, what happens with Yeshu? He tells his rabbi comes and says, Yeshu, do teshuvah. And what does he tell his rabbi? He says, Rabbi, you taught me that only a sinner can do teshuvah. But one who sins and causes other people to sin, they don't allow him to do teshuvah anymore. And Yeshu said, I'm from those people that I can't do teshuvah anymore. All kinds of silly people, by the way, who write all kinds of silly books. But the good Yeshu and the lessons you can learn from Yeshu and all kinds of wonderful things about Yeshu. Our rabbis thought Yeshu was the worst of the worst. And you can, in 2023, try to come up with all kinds of Judeo-Christian peace and love and harmony, all kinds of wonderful things you dreamt up in a nightmare. But we know that according to our Chachamim, Yeshu was scum of the earth. Especially bother the Chachamim, how much Yeshu hated Goyim. He hated Goyim. Think about the stories in the New Testament where people come to Yeshu for a blessing, begging for his help. And he says, you're not Jewish. I won't give from the bread of the children to the dogs. You remember that story? Our rabbis love this story because it shows you just how morally bankrupt Yeshu was. Our Chachamim who told us that we bury non-Jews with Jews, that we heal non-Jews with Jews, that we support poor people from the non-Jews with Jews, because we are human beings. Chachamim rule that way. That's in the Rambam, that's in the Shulchan Aruch. What kind of Jew says we don't take care of non-Jews? Only an evil one. When Chachamim give a nickname to Yeshu, because you know that Chachamim at some point in time were concerned with speaking about Yeshu using his name. So they gave him a nickname. His nickname in the Talmud, Yeshu is a nickname. You know that, right? Yeshu stands for Yemach Shemo V'Zichro. May his name be erased and wiped out. It's a play on Yeshua, right? But there's another name they give him, a nickname. No, Acher is somebody else. Who do they call him? Bilam. Bilam the sorcerer. Our rabbis believe that Yeshu was involved in sorcery. And why do they call him Bilam? You know what Bilam looked like? The same thing Yeshu looked like. You ever seen the pictures of Yeshu? Now driving in San Diego. It depends which neighborhood. Yeshu has different skin colors. But most of the time, he looks like some tall, skinny, white guy with a beard. He looks like he should be surfing here in La Jolla. Yeah? Blonde hair, blue eyes, beard, and like a halo on his head. Something like that. That's what Yeshu looks like. You know what Yeshu looked like? Because our Chachamim knew him. Our Chachamim describe him as Bil'am. What did Bil'am look like? Like all the magicians. What did all the sorcerers look like? What did all the sorcerers look like? Tattooed from head to toe. Sorcery, tattoos are forbidden because of their connection to sorcery. And Avodah Zarah. Yeshu was a person who was really ugly to look at. He looked like one of those sorcerers. That was part of where he went with his life. Bil'am looked the same way. You didn't know that? So ask yourself why you're learning Torah for so many years and you didn't learn that. It's time for us to learn more Torah together. But not the fake Torah, real things. So now the Rambam is going to tell us the following. Lefichach katuv b'Torah. Now that you understand this principle, you could recognize Vani achazek et lev paro. I will harden the heart of Paro. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you don't let him do teshuvah? Why not? Lefi shechatam me'atzmo techila. Who forced Paro to do sin in the beginning, to hate the Jews? Himself. Because he did that out of his own free will, V'hera liYisrael hagarim b'artzon, he made the life of the Jews living in his country evil. שנאמר הווה נתחכמה לו, נתן הדין למנוע ממנו התשובה, עד שנפרעים ממנו, ולפיכך חיזק הקדוש ברוך הוא דיבו. So הקדוש ברוך hu's consequence to him was, you want to fight against Am Yisrael and destroy them? Your sin is so evil, I won't even let you do teshuvah. So then why did he send Moshe Rabbenu to him? Meaning, how many times he said, ולמה הוא שולח לו ביד משה ואומר לו שלח, עשה תשובה, כבר אמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא שאין אתה משלח. So what's the purpose of sending Moshe Rabbeinu to Paro? Let my people go. Meaning, stop being bad to the Jews. Stop being bad to the Jews. If Paro had no chance, why did he do it? Says the Rambam, כדי להודיע לבאי העולם, to teach all the people in the world, שבזמן שמונע הקדוש ברוך הוא התשובה לחוטא, that when הקדוש ברוך הוא decides that someone cannot do תשובה, אינו יכול לשוב. אינו יכול לשוב. He's unable to do תשובה. אלא ימות בראשו, שעשה בתחילה ברצונו. That a person can die losing their free will to do teshuvah. I gave you free will, and you used your free will to hurt other people. At this point in time, you've lost your ability to use your free will to save yourself. That's how bad it can get. Who else? V'chen Sichon. Who's Sichon? Melech? Melech? Ha'emori, very good. Melech Hayabashan. Og Melech Habashan, yeah. Sichon מלך אמורי, לפי העוונות שהיו לו נתחייב למונוע התשובה, שנאמר, כי הקשה אדוני אלוהיך עד רוחו ואימץ את לבבו. הקדוש ברוך הוא made Sichon unable to do תשובה. וכן, and who else, what's the next word here? וכן, הכנענים, the people of Canaan. We said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't let them make peace with the Jews because he wanted them to be wiped out. And it sounded kind of bad. Why did he not wipe the Jews' teshuvah? Lifi to'avotehen. Because they lived such an ugly life. We know that how many times that HaKadosh Baruch Hu warned us in the Torah, you're coming to the land of Israel, be so careful not to learn from the people of Canaan. Be so careful not... He doesn't tell us about all the goyim like that. He specifically mentions Canaan. Why? That's how depraved of a people they are. Already Avraham Avinu was concerned about the people. I mean, Canaan has a reputation of the worst people in the world. HaKadosh says, listen, I finally have a chance to wipe them out. Mana mihena teshuvah she'asu milchama im Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't let them do teshuvah until they fought a war with Israel. And there were also Jews like that. V'chen Yisrael b'mei Eliyahu. There were Jews in the times of Eliyahu the prophet. Lefi shehirbu lifshoah. Because they were such bad Jews. Mana me'otan hamarbim teshuvah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't let those Jews do teshuvah. Why? Sometimes a person can be so bad, there's no way to fix them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says they're irreparable. There's nothing I could do. And there's nothing that one could do. Very good. And so their life, if you see them living life and their life looks good, understand, they're in hospice care. They're just waiting for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to let them die. Because teshuvah, they can't do it. Nimtzeta omer. So what do you learn from this, says the Rambam? Instead of all the midrashim they teach our children in school about the frogs and the blood and the lice, if only they taught them a few paragraphs of the Rambam to explain the whole book of Shemot. We're now starting the book of Shemot. Nimtzeta omer. So what do you learn from here? She'en ha'el gazar al paro lehara leIsrael. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not decree on Paro to do bad to the Jews. V'lo al Sichon lachato be'artzo. And not on Sichon to do bad in his land. The Jews came into his border, remember? V'lo al Kena'anim lahativ. And he didn't cause the Kena'anim to be disgusting people. V'lo al Yisrael la'avod avodah zarah. He didn't tell the Jews in the days of Eliyahu HaNavi to worship idols. Ela kulan chatu me'atzman. All of them chose to do bad with their own free will. And therefore they all deserve to lose their ability to do teshuvah. And that's why it says the Rambam in so many places, the prophets, David HaMelech, you see him all over the place, say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please, Horeni Adonai Darkecha, show me your ways. I don't want to make a mistake and end up in a place. See, if I make a mistake and I can fix it, that's one thing. But I'm afraid I'm going to make the kind of mistake that I'll never be able to fix. Don't let me do that. And Rambam brings many examples here. That what if there are no prophets? Says the Rambam, anybody who clings to wisdom, who knows how to think like a normal person, to think like a healthy human being, that's like being connected to prophecy. You know how to make the correct decisions because you use your logic to make the correct decisions. As long as you keep a healthy mind and a healthy heart and a neshama that is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to the prophets and to the chachamim, then you will always be able to continue doing teshuvah because you'll keep fixing yourself. Now the Rambam asked one last question. And then Zev gave me extra credit. I'll tell you about it in just a second. V'lo katuv b'Torah, but it says in the Torah, says the Rambam halacha hey, ve'avadum v'inu otam, that the Jewish people, what's going to happen to them, says the HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Abraham, that your children will be strangers in a land, help me out, a land that is not theirs, in the land of Egypt. And they will be slaves, and they will make them suffer. So what is Paro going to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu?
Destined it to be.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm the most religious guy in the world. I'm fulfilling your promise to Abraham. I'm going to make the Jews suffer. Says Rabbenu HaRambam, Hari gazar al hamitzrim lasod ra. Didn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu already decreed that the Egyptians have to do bad? Hari gazar al Yisrael avod avodah zarah. Avram nifra me'en. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said the Jews are going to do avodah zarah. So maybe that's what they're supposed to do. Lefi shelo gazar al ish ploni hayadua shehu hazoneh. In which part of Bereshit does it say that Paro, this Paro, is going to be the one to make the Jews slaves? Where does it say it? It doesn't. It doesn't say his name. Hey, Paro number 3, you have to make the Jews suffer. It just says that sometime the Jews are going to suffer. It doesn't say, hey, you're going to do this avirah. It doesn't say that anywhere. אלא, אילו לא רצה לעבוד, לא היה עובד. ולא הודיעו הבורא למנהגו של עולם. Every person has choices to make. The Germans, their famous line of the Germans was, I was just following orders. Could a German choose to not follow orders? Yeah, what would be the price he would pay likely? He would die. He would die. Or go to jail. Or be in a concentration camp. He chose to give in to evil. And for that, he's being held accountable. Nobody said it's going to be easy to kick your avodah zarah addiction. Just that the choice is yours. Nobody said that it's going to be easy to fight against the Nazis. But there were righteous people in Europe who stood up to the Nazis. And those people are the ones you should focus on. Not the people who, we are following orders. The weak people of society. So what is this similar to? לאומר, העם הזה יהיה בהם צדיקים מרושעים. I'm going to say the following sentence. There are good Jews and bad Jews. You agree? Yeah? There's a stupid song that came out. The song says, every Jew's a big tzaddik. Every Jew's a big tzaddik. From his head until his toes. He says it in Yiddish. I know, I'm translating. Every Jew's a big tzaddik. I have a whole lineup of Jews to show him. Not even from their head to their toes is anything good over there. I know that the Hasidim here are going to kill me. I understand. Doesn't matter. There are some crooks of Jews, Chevre. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, there are going to be good Jews and bad Jews. So what can I say? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to be a bad Jew. You said there have to be bad Jews, no? It says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but why do you have to choose to be a bad Jew? I mean, anyways, they're going to be bad people. Why do you have to be the bad person? Can you just be a good person? And therefore, says the Rambam, v'chen hamitzriim. The same is true with the Egyptians. כל אחד ואחד מאותן המצרים והמרעים לישראל, אילו לא רצה להרע להן הרשות בידו. Any Egyptian could have got up and left Egypt and chosen not to be bad to the Jews. שלא גזר על איש ידוע, להודיעו שסוף זרעו להשתבט בארץ לא להם. וכבר אמרנו שאין כוח באדם לדע האח ידע הקדוש ברוך הוא, דברים שעתידין להיות. And there's already a dilemma in Jewish philosophy of how it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can know the future, yet you still have free will. It's not part of this conversation right now, says the Rambam. But here's something you should know, that we are all responsible for our actions. And when we take actions that are bad, we do actions that are negative, we will pay the price for those things. And the worst thing, the greatest gift we have is teshuvah. Because so long as you are able to do teshuvah, you should know HaKadosh Baruch Hu still loves you. He still wants you to come back to Him. But if you find a person who's just unable to do teshuvah, every time they try, nothing. At that point, HaKadosh says, listen, the averot that a person has done, that a nation has done, are so bad that all of the Egyptians deserve to die. Because those who chose to leave could have left. But now it's too late. In the middle of this war, it's not time to do teshuvah. There's no more time for teshuvah. The time was before. And that brings me to my last extra credit. This is just for fun. Just for fun. In fact, we should probably make it its own clip just for fun. Zev, now that you know all of this, asked a question about a blessing. There's a blessing that some people say when their child becomes a bar mitzvah. What is the blessing? Blessed are you, Hashem, who has exempted me from the punishments of this child. It's a very heartwarming blessing. The parents say by their child's bar mitzvah. The origin of this beracha, I want to tell you, the origin of this beracha is from a midrash in Bereshit Rabbah. The midrash says the following. Amar Rabbi Elazar beRabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar tells Rabbi Shimon, Tzarich Adam lehitapel bivno yud gimel shana. A person has an obligation to raise his child, to take care of his child for 13 years. You have to feed them, clothe them, take them to school, do all of those things for 13 years. Mikan ve'elach, after the age of 13, they become an adult. Supposed to be. Imagine being 14 and telling your Jewish mother, I can go out because I had my bar mitzvah already, and then you realize you're not really an adult. But until then, tzarich shiomar, at that point a person has to say, Baruch sheptarani me'onsho shel zeh. Blessed is he who exempted me from the suffering of this child. That's a midrash. It's a midrash. It's curious that the Rambam doesn't mention this blessing at all. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention this blessing at all. The Geonim make no mention of this blessing at all. But among the Ashkenazim, this blessing pops up. We find in the writings of Rabbi Aaron HaKohen of Lunil, he says, "V'yesh omrim ota b'pam rishona shel oleh haben likro b'Torah." The first time the son goes to read the Torah, presumably bar mitzvah, some say this blessing. V'agaon Rabbi Yehuda Izal, and the Rabbi Yehuda, a French rabbi, kam al raglav bevet hakneset. He stood up on his feet in the bet hakneset, u'birech beracha zor b'pam rishona shekara beno b'Torah. And he said this blessing the first time his son got aliyah to the Torah. And there's Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac of Tirna, writes in the books of Minhagim of the Maharil. He says, Mahari Segal, the famous Rabbi Segal. Segal is, last name means, Sgan, the Kihuna, or the Kohanim, it means he's a Levi. Seagulls are always Leviim. Like how are cats Kohanim? Because cat stands for Kohen Tzedek, so that's בזמן שבנו נעשה בר מצווה וקרא בתורה מברך עליו ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו מלך העולם אשר פטרני מעונשו של זה. He even added Hashem's name to the blessing. And he said the blessing when the son got aliyah to the Torah. This therefore tells us when the Rama says the following. The Rama says that nowadays the minhag is to say this blessing, Ach tov levarech belo shem u'malchut, but you shouldn't say Hashem's name when you say this blessing. Why not? Because its origin is not in the Rambam or the Shulchan Aruch. It's not really in the Talmud. There's no origin to this blessing. In later generations, you hear some Sephardim say this blessing. Mamash later generations. I'm talking to you 100, 150 years. Why didn't the Sephardim say this blessing? Why didn't they? Yeah, but okay, so the first time the son turns 13, anyways, is considered something in halakha. Why would Sephardim skip such a precious blessing, at least without a Kadosh Baruch Hu's name? Here, Harav Kapach tells us something wonderful, and for that, I have to pull out the Mishneh Torah of Harav Kapach, which I have here somewhere on the shelf, because I didn't bring mine from home, of course. Down there are two. The two red books to the right there, yeah, those. I think those are them? No, those are not them. Here. I need a big book bag. Let me just read to you this writing from Harav Kapach, and with this, I will send you home. So Harav Kapach writes this here. How do I know? From this Rambam on Teshuvah. Here's Harav Kapach writes. Remember when it said that a person who does an avera, either their body is punished, their money is punished, or their small children are punished, because small children are not independent creatures. They're part of their parents until they turn 13 for a boy or 12 for a girl. It makes no sense, by the way, why a girl, they don't say Baruch Sheptarani also for her, for those who say it. Chaim Yosef talks about this in the Abiyah. At the end of the day, Chaim seems to say, you should say it without a blessing. I'm not sure exactly why. Let's read what Harav Kapach says here. It's clear that according to the Rambam and his sources here, אין שום מקום לאותה ברכה שמברך האב בהגיע הבן לי"ג שנים ברוך שפטרני מעונשו של זה. There's no room to say this blessing. Blessed are you, Hashem. What is the meaning of the blessing? Blessed are you, Hashem, who exempted me from the punishment of this child. What's the idea behind this blessing? Until the age of 13, you're responsible for the child's actions. And because of that, you now say, thank you, Hashem, I no longer have to suffer because of my child. If anything, the child should say the blessing, according to the Rambam. Because until the age of 13, he can drop dead at any moment because of his parents. Now, at the age of 13, he's free. So if anything, the child, but there is an Ashkenazi commentary like that who says the child should say the blessing, according to the Rambam. That he should say, blessed are you, Hashem, who saved me from the sins of my parents. ונחלקו פוסקים אם יש בשם ומלכות ואם בלי שם ומלכות, whether you should say HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name or not HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name is a big debate among the poskim. Says the Rav Kapach, וייתכן שצריך הבן לעמוד ולהודות ברוך שפטרני מעונשו של האב. Really, the bar mitzvah, the boy should get up and say, blessed are you, Hashem, who saved me from the sins of my father. ובכל אופן, nonetheless, לדעת רבנו, according to the Rambam, המברכים בשם ומלכות, היא ברכה לבטלה. That someone who says his blessing with Hashem's name is saying God's name in vain. והמברך בלי שם ומלכות, and if you choose to say without Hashem's name, הרי הוא אומר דברים שאין להם משמעות. He's saying something that is nonsensical, doesn't make any sense. ולפיכך, and therefore, לא נהגו אבותינו בהודעה זו ולא נשמעה ביניהם. You never heard of our forefathers at all saying this blessing or talking about this blessing because this blessing is entirely irrelevant. A parent never suffers for the sins of their child. The child is always held accountable until the age of Bar Mitzvah for the suffering of the parents. And Shini, the pasuk that you mentioned before, which is that children suffer for the sins of their parents, and another verse says, but the children don't suffer for the sins of their parents. The rabbinic reconciliation of those pasukim is that if a child who becomes an adult is a good person, they don't suffer for the sins of their parents. Why should they suffer because of something they didn't do? The whole Christian mentality that we are suffering for, it doesn't exist. On the flip side, if the parents were evil people and the child grows up and he chooses to be evil also, then the Kadosh says, I'm not just going to punish you for your averot, I'm going to give you the whole package. I have some rollover minutes or rollover miles or rollover vacation days. I'm going to add it to your bill. And that's how those kind of things happen.
When it talks about the child who's a glutton and eats a big meal under a tree, etc., is that
It's
pre-13 or post?
That's a fantastic question. The laws of Ben Soel Moreh, I'll give you the proper place to look up all of those details of the halakha. This...
I have a question on the King Solomon.
Yeah.
Hashem told him, okay, you know what? These going to be the consequences of whatever will happen, but you're not going to see it. Your kid's going to see it. The kid's not even born yet. So how does that work?
So again, that's going to go connected to what I just said over there. Are the kids righteous people or not? And what are they doing right or wrong in their life? But for right now, the purpose of this whole shiur was to go back to the story of the conquest of Eretz Israel, which is there were nations that we offered them peace, and they didn't make peace with us. And then Yehoshua tells us, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want them to make peace because he wanted to wipe them out. But that has nothing to do with us. That has everything to do with their open tab in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were such bad people that if we would have accepted their peace, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would let us make peace with them. But the real desire of the creator of the universe was that these bad people should finally be eradicated from the world. They're so bad that they cannot do teshuvah. And what about a few individuals of them who leave? Great, that's like everyone else. Every Egyptian could have gotten up and saved themselves. That's why certain members of Amalek were able to join the Jewish people. Why? Because we're not hating on the people who are biologically from Amalek, but who have chosen to accept HaKadosh Baruch Hu on themselves. And when we begin to understand this properly, then so many of the things that we try to hide from people in the Torah because we're afraid of what it looks like, it's because we haven't yet sat down well with our Torah and our books to understand what exactly our HaShamayim meant when they said the things they meant. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue God willing next week. I hope by next week we'll already have 2 nights of Kolah. B'ezrat Hashem. Thank you so much for learning Torah with me tonight. I appreciate it.